Now, you may have seen my recent video showcasing a Ferrari F430 Spider. That car I posited as a good potential first Ferrari. However, I do appreciate the fact that if you want to pick up one of those, you are going to be looking at the thick end of about £100,000. So if you don't have that much money, but you still want to buy your first Ferrari, here is a damn good alternative. For less than half the price of that, you can pick up one of these beautiful 456 GTs. In fact, this exact car is currently up for sale for, I think, a fairly modest price of £45,000. Now, describing anything that's 45 grand as modestly priced is tricky, but do bear with me. I appreciate the fact that a few years ago you could have picked up one of these for about 25 grand. However, that wouldn't have been a great car, and the way the market stands at the moment, if you wanted to pick up a 550, arguably more desirable, but essentially a very similar car to this, you'd still be paying anywhere between about 80 and 100 grand, or a little bit more for a 575. You could also try and make the argument that this is a practical, sensible, dailyable Ferrari. Now, in truth, this isn't particularly sensible or especially practical. It does have 4 seats and you can really get adults in the back there. It's got a boot which is okay in size by Ferrari standards. You'd get your clubs in there, or you can get a few decent bags in there, so if there's 2 of you going away, you could certainly take enough luggage for a week or so, but I certainly wouldn't use it to start moving old furniture around. It also drinks like a fish, and it's not going to be the cheapest car in the world to maintain. So taking that into account, really the 456 only has one thing left going for it. Is it a proper Ferrari? Well, I think it is. This one, by the way, has that beautiful manual box in it, and it sounds absolutely delicious. There are some aftermarket back boxes of some description, brand unknown. It's not too shouty, but when you start it in the morning, it's got a nice deep throaty rumble. But then when you push on, it has that kind of mechanical howl that you expect from a classic Vezza. For those interested in numbers, here's a quick breakdown of the car. Whilst 440 horsepower and 400 pound-foot of torque might seem like the sort of figures that you can easily extract from a modern-day hot hatchback, it's the way the Ferrari delivers them that sets it apart. You've got pull from essentially nothing all the way up to its relatively low 7 and a bit thousand RPM redline. Peak power is actually made closer to 6,000 RPM, so if you're expecting some sort of screaming F12 on a budget, I'd look elsewhere. This really is a bit of a GT car. It's set up relatively softly. The car does have adjustable dampers with 3 settings available: soft, medium and hard. I'm currently driving in a medium, although this is a very well paved road, so I'm going to switch it over to hard. Earlier I was taking the car down some slightly trickier roads, and I did try the soft setting, but I found that just compromised the car's ride a little bit too much. Now, this does have a self-leveling rear suspension, although it's not quite as tricky as you would think. It checks the rear end's height every now and again and makes sure that the car is always driving relatively flat. Basically, it's there to make sure that if you've got luggage and people in the back, the car's handling isn't going to be compromised. This 6-speed shifter is every bit as nice to use as you would expect it to be. It sort of feels somewhere in between the ones I've used in the old V8 Ferraris, 355, 360, and in the 430. I think it's a little bit quicker and easier than that in the older cars, but it's not quite as slick as in the 430. Now this car has about 50,000 miles on it, which for a Ferrari is actually quite a lot. Any other car from 1996 you would say it's barely run in, but this is a well-used example. However, it's worn those miles incredibly well. The car isn't rattling or creaking, and genuinely I would expect a 23-year-old Ferrari to do all of those things. I even really love the interior design. It's proper classic old school Ferrari. You've got a very simple display here, 2 big dials so you can see exactly what you're doing, and you've got a whole bevy of gauges down here which aren't the easiest to read, but they just look stunning, real proper old school Italian. You got switches here which are very similar to those that you would find in a 355, 360, 430, although I should point out these feel like they're sort of plastic coated. Perhaps they've been treated in the past, but old Ferrari switches have this tendency to go all gooey and horrible, and these haven't. Perhaps it's because they've been sprayed differently or something like that, I couldn't say, but they are much nicer to touch than those in most other cars if they haven't already been treated. I don't know what it is about Ferrari engines, but they've all got a very similar feel to them, a very similar tone, and this one is just delicious. I know there's people out there that will say that a Ferrari is all engine and no chassis, but that's just not true. Although this is not the sprightliest of cars, and it's certainly not a light car, it does respond pretty well. Steering is much slower than you would expect from a modern Ferrari, but it's not entirely devoid of feel. It's lighter than you would expect. Unfortunately, I haven't driven a 550 to say how that car's steering compares, but it's possibly similar to the 355. It's been a little while since I've driven one of those, and I expected it to be quite a bit heavier, because you see the 355 doesn't have a lot of weight up front. This certainly does. That big old 65-degree V12 is related to the Dino unit and is actually totally different from the old Ferrari V12. The 456 is also notable for being one of the last Ferraris to use their old naming convention, 456 being the displacement of each individual cylinder in the V12. And the next car to use that was the 488. Bimbling along, this car is so easy. The gearbox is a delight. I'm comfy. The seats are a bit odd. You do feel like you're very much perched on top of them, and they feel like they've been designed for someone with much shorter legs than me. They're a bit odd, but you kind of get used to it. One thing which is very annoying to use on this car is the handbrake. It is down there, as in many other Ferraris, and it is a fly-off type. If you're unfamiliar with how they work, basically you pull up to engage without pressing the button, and then to disengage you put the button in and lower it down. However, because it is wedged in between the seat and the door card, getting to it is not the easiest, so hill starts aren't particularly natural to do. Out, I can say that much, and it certainly gets you down the road. In fact, you do have to be quite wary of the speed it can pick up, because it's pretty well refined in here, and so it masks your speed exceedingly well. The 456 has a reputation as being much more expensive to maintain than some of the cars that followed it, including the 550. There's a couple of significant differences between this engine and that in the later car. First off, this has solid lifters. That means along with your regular servicing routine, you probably do want to get the valve clearances checked at certain intervals. Now, exactly what interval, I'm not going to say, because at this stage, every specialist has their own idea about what is necessary. But if you can't find any history of it having been done in the car, it's something you probably want to get checked out. The 550 also has a very different intake setup, so it's got variable length runners and things like that. It's all quite trick, and basically means that the car has a bit more top-end fireworks. But this really isn't particularly lacking. It's only, I think, if you compare it with a much more modern Ferrari that you think it maybe wasn't trying hard enough, but that honestly is just a bit unfair, really. Now, this car is another one owned by the very good people at John Ashley. In fact, it belongs to one of the directors there. And I get on with him very well, because you see, he's a proper petrol head. How do I define proper petrol head in this circumstance? Well, he went off out to go and buy an old BMW and came back with this. I think we all lay awake at night, don't we, dreaming of accidentally buying a Ferrari. Well, he really did it, so fair play to him. Now, because he has the facilities to hand, he was able to go over this car with a fine-tooth comb and rectify all the car's issues. The truth is that it actually had very, very few, and those it had were able to be sorted for relatively little outlay. And I would say that this is another example of a car where having a specialist to look after it is always going to save you money in the long term. You might think that they're more expensive because they may have higher hourly rates or things like that, but believe me when I say that a little specialist knowledge really does go a long way when it comes to classic Italian cars. These are also pretty rare cars. Just over 3,000 were produced in a very long period. They were introduced in 1992 and weren't phased out until about 2003. They revised the model halfway through its life and called it the 456M. There were quite a few changes made, but it was not a dramatically different car. For me, the one to avoid would be the 456 GTA. Those are the ones with the automatic gearbox. The second and final time that Ferrari ever used a traditional torque converter automatic. I'm sure that it's a fairly decent box by the standards of the day, but to me, if you're gonna go and buy a Ferrari from this time period, you just have to have the manual in it, you really do. And much of the market for these, sadly, is filled with automatic and often left-hand drive examples. One of the other benefits of the 456 to me is the fact that if you want to buy your first Ferrari, but you're worried about it being a bit showy, this is a fantastic car. If you're used to having something like a 911 or even 911 Turbo, something that's a bit more anonymous, this is maybe a good way to get into Ferrari ownership. I still haven't made my mind up as to whether I think it's a pretty car or not. From some angles it's really good, from some angles it's really not, but it's one of those cars that's a great talking point. There's so many things about it that are just awesome. Some of my personal favourites, including the vents in the bonnet that you can see from here. That bonnet, by the way, is one huge composite piece, and the body in these cars was actually manufactured by Pininfarina, not just designed by them. The later M's were made in-house by Ferrari. The giveaway there is that on the side of this it says Pininfarina, and on the M's it says designed by Pininfarina. So a practical shopping car the 456 may not be, but proper Ferrari it certainly is. It's got a great engine, it's not a bad looker, it sounds awesome, and it even drives far, far more comfortably than you'd ever expect anything from Maranello to. I even love the little details like the super cool and very shallow stereo system down here, proper old school AC, which works, by the way. Everything in here actually works. This is a cool car. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed. Please like, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.